That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we are doing something a little bit different today. We are going to go through and we are going to head over to Patreon and get some real life Dynasty trades. And I just put out a post that, hey, comment your real life Dynasty trades that you've made within the last 1 or 2 weeks, and I'll be happy to go over them in next week's video. And we got a lot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go over every single one. I'm going to try to get everyone that I can. But of course, before we get into it, we have to announce that we have the Fantasy Flock Network meetup on January 15th. You better be there. If you are in Florida, there's no excuse. Go to Tampa. It's right in the middle. We had a ton of fun at the Texas Flock meetup this last offseason. Probably going to try to get one of these going every single year. Hopefully, we change the location every year. That way we could get some people on the West Coast probably out next. But nonetheless, let's go through. Let's dive into this video. Actually, I'm sorry. One other announcement. Over there on Patreon, not only are you going to have access to going through and replying on cool posts like this, but at the same time, you have our Dynasty rankings on Patreon, getting into Dynasty League with us on Patreon, getting in our Dynasty group chat on Patreon, get a Fantasy Flock Network hat on Patreon. I mean, there's so much stuff going on there. And also, we're about to do weekly Q&As with the Dynasty Patreon community at the same time. Drop a like, leave a comment, let me know how stupid I am, and let's dive into this video. And I'm just going to scroll through these posts and grab a trade at a time and go through and talk about it. This first one, let's grab Gnarl Malone's trade. This is going to be a 10-team Superflex format. Really quick, I want to talk about some different adjustments we need to be making in a 10-team Superflex league compared to a 12-team Superflex league. This is something that I talk about a lot, but you really need to understand your league format and how that optimizes your roster construction. I mean, if you are playing in a league where you have 3 starting wide receivers and 3 flex spots, wide receivers are going to be significantly more valuable in that format compared to a league where you only start 3 wide receivers and have 1 flex spot. There, you're going to be a little bit more inclined to, instead of focusing on wide receiver depth, to possibly chase in high upside tight end later on in the draft, maybe someone like Pat Fryman. Just a small example, but one example that we need to be changing is the adjustment to a 10-team Superflex league, where I am sure that if you have been in a 12-team Superflex league before, have seen 12-team Superflex mock drafts, and then you don't really make the adjustment going over to a 10-team league, you're going to end up overvaluing the quarterback position. Just because if you do some simple math here, in a 12-team Superflex format, pretty much every team should have 1 to 2 starting quarterbacks. I mean, the majority of teams will have 3, but there are going to be some teams stuck with only 2 starting quarterbacks, and then all of a sudden, when Ryan Fitzmagic goes down at the beginning of the season, they are in a horrible position, and there's always going to be at least 1 or 2 teams in your 12-team Superflex format that is going out there and trying to trade to acquire an additional QB. Whereas in a 10-team league, every team, without the math checks out, should in theory have 3 to 4 starting quarterbacks on their roster. Now, of course, in reality, that's not necessarily going to be the case, but just knowing that 90% of those teams are going to be loaded up on the quarterback position, quarterbacks are naturally going to fall down a little bit further in rookie drafts, and they're also actually going to just have a lower price tag on them in trade at the same time. So in a Superflex 10-team league, I'm going to be a little more inclined to go and chase the quarterbacks that have the elite ceiling and avoid the quarterbacks that maybe have a high floor but a low ceiling. And looking at this trade, this is the perfect example of just that from Gnarl Malone. He comes out, he says he traded Tua Tagovailoa and a future 3rd for Deshaun Watson and a future 2nd. My God, I don't know how you got this pulled off. You said you have Lawrence and Wilson at quarterback and you're in a full rebuild and your buddy was competing for the championship and needed the quarterback depth. Bravo. I mean, there is no reason that you should see Tua Tagovailoa ranked ahead of Deshaun Watson. It doesn't matter if you're a contending team. To go through and trade away Deshaun Watson at that price point is absolutely absurd. We have seen Deshaun Watson essentially be a top 5 quarterback every single season he has played on a points per game basis in his entire NFL career. Now, of course, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Mason, unsure if you've been following the situation. Deshaun Watson may not play next year. That's fair. It's definitely fair that Deshaun Watson, right now, we don't know if he's going to be good to go next season. I am personally, and of course, I am an idiot. I am nobody to say this. My opinion, honestly, doesn't matter at all here because who the hell am I to say this? But based on what we have seen over the past decade, The NFL's a business. It's in it to make money. Deshaun Watson playing in the NFL will make the NFL significantly more money than if Deshaun Watson doesn't play. I'd imagine they do everything that they can to get an elite quarterback on the field. Now, beyond that, let's go through and let's talk about Tua Tagovailoa a little bit. Now, with Tua, I honestly think that he may be an intriguing sell-high quarterback. And I know a lot of people are going to be coming with their pitchforks, just marching up and down the street, screaming at me for saying that. Now, trust me, I understand that Tua Tagovailoa has his supporters in Dynasty. I mean, it makes sense because obviously Tua Tagovailoa was a quarterback that was seen as a can't-miss prospect at Alabama before his devastating hip injury. He had a very poor rookie season. And usually after a rookie has that poor rookie season, I've been the guy over the past 2 years since we learned our lessons super hard back in the 2015 days to know that, okay, well, a lot of these guys, they're not going to quote unquote bounce back. They're not going to be going through and having that breakout in the second year if they just demonstrated that they were bad their rookie season. However, I was a little bit on the fence with Tua Tagovailoa. I wasn't going through and telling people to panic on his rookie year because the devastating hip injury. I mean, I wasn't holding it against him that he was almost sharing that quarterback one role with Ryan Fitzmagic because it was an injury he wasn't even supposed to come back from that season. So now, if we're looking at Tua Tagovailoa in year 2, I think most people would make the argument, especially with Miami going out there and having a great stretch of games. I believe they won 7 games in a row and actually in playoff contention at one point. I think people have gone a little bit too far with Tua Tagovailoa in expecting him to take that next jump. And this was very similar to how we were saying that Baker Mayfield was a sell-high quarterback for us a few seasons ago. And the reason for this, and it's very simple. It's unbelievably simple. Tua has no upside. He has no upside at all. I want to hammer this in because if you're looking at what we had this season, through the first 16 weeks, 89 rushing yards. Now, you can be a quarterback going out there and being a top 10 option in fantasy football with not running the ball at all. I mean, those names this year were Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady. You had 3 names that were able to get that mark. And I am sitting here and saying, if you are ever trying to project a quarterback to take the elite jump up with their passing volume to be in the same tier of player as a Tom Brady or as an Aaron Rodgers, that is such an obnoxious bet that we were saying the same thing with Baker Mayfield. A lot of people wanted to make the argument that Baker Mayfield all of a sudden was going to be some above average quarterback at the next level. They were making the argument that after his rookie season, they saw enough that you could say Baker Mayfield was going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And if you want to say Tua Tagovailoa will be a top 10 quarterback from an NFL standpoint, I'm not going to argue with you because I don't agree with it at first, but it's not important. It's not important if Tua can go out there and manage some games and win games in the NFL. If he's not going to rush the ball, he's simply not going to be putting up fantasy points. We saw this with, another former Alabama quarterback, the guy that Tua took his job from at Alabama, and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts comes out here and he has less passing yards on a per game basis than Tua Tagovailoa. A lot of people argue that, Tua would be better than Jalen Hurts. It doesn't freaking matter when Jalen Hurts is coming out here and Jalen Hurts is averaging damn near 22.5 fantasy points on a per game basis, and Tua Tagovailoa is down there at 16. So I think with Tua, unless you're expecting him to take a significant jump up with his passing volume and efficiency, unless you're expecting him to be one of the most prolific passers in the NFL, he has no upside from a fantasy football standpoint, given the fact that he is not going to rush the ball. I want to end it there. Players like Tua Tagovailoa, perfect example is Baker Mayfield a few years ago. Of course, everybody knows now that Baker Mayfield was always overrated in Dynasty, and it's not necessarily because Baker Mayfield turned into a horrible real-life NFL quarterback. I'm not even saying that with Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not saying he's going to turn into Baker Mayfield, but what I am saying is for him to be valued at this point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, it simply doesn't make sense because he either has to become Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady level with his passing volume, or Matthew Stafford, or he's not going to be a top 10 quarterback, and there's no room for wiggle here. So give me the roll the dice with Deshaun Watson. If you tell me, Mason, there's a 50% chance Deshaun Watson plays in 2022, and there's a 50% chance that Deshaun Watson never plays another down in the NFL, give me Deshaun Watson over Tua Tagovailoa, because we know that if he does play, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. And if you ask me the chances that Tua ever becomes a top 5 quarterback, I'd say maybe 5%. Like, very, very low. Okay. But I know that was a little bit of a rant here. Okay, we honestly just turned this video into a Tua Tagovailoa video. I'll try to go a little bit faster. Let's grab a trade from Adam. 10-team PPR, 1 quarterback, in parentheses, sadly, league. Traded Devonta Smith in a 2023 first for Stephon Diggs, the 204, and a future third. Currently have Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Ayuk, Darnell Mooney, Terrace Marshall, KJ Osborne, CJ Wilson, Chark, Hamler, Hilton, Diggs with the addition. I will say, if this was going to be a super flex format, that 2023 first round pick would probably be enough for me to prefer having Devonta Smith in the pick. But knowing that this is a 1 quarterback format instead, that pick is actually inherently going to be worth a little bit less. Now, I know a lot of people aren't wanting to trade those 2023 picks. I know a lot of people are talking about that being one of the best draft classes we have ever seen at the running back position, which I think it's a little bit early to say that. Of course, hook 'em horns with Bijan Robinson, but nonetheless, I'm actually fine with this trade, going and getting Stephon Diggs at this price point for a 1 quarterback league, because that first round rookie pick is inherently worth a little bit less. Let's go to our next trade. That's going to be from Brian. It says 12-team PPR Superflex. We traded Tua. I like it. Michael Gallup before the injury, a second and a third, that third so far, so essentially just a second, and you received Ryan Tannehill and Jalen Waddle. Considering the fact that age simply doesn't matter at the quarterback position, I mean, if you pull up my Dynasty rankings and look at Tua Tagovailoa and Ryan Tannehill, I don't really care who you want there. Personally, I probably go Tannehill, because I think we've seen Tannehill hit a points per game so far in his NFL career that Tua hasn't come close to. And at the same time, I think Tannehill does have a very safe job in Tennessee. I mean, considering a multitude of factors, mainly that team is currently winning games. But what is unbelievably important and what cannot be denied is, regardless if you want Tua or Tannehill, I think they're in the same tier. And Jalen Waddle compared to Michael Gallup in a second, that's a massive gap. Congrats on going and getting Jalen Waddle at that price point. It'd be nice if we could have built in that stack, but it is what it is. Let's go to our next trade. That's going to be Chimichanga, 12-team PPR Superflex. Give Jamar Chase and receive Javonte Williams, the 107 and the 108. Okay, this is easy. You're going to take Javonte Williams. I understand Jamar Chase looks like the Dynasty wide receiver 1 previously. I mean, all season I had Justin Jefferson there. I think that we can honestly, at this point, probably take our L. Jamar Chase just drops 50 points against the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're probably going to have to move Jamar Chase up to wide receiver 1. But knowing that the receiver position is significantly more replaceable than a 3-down rookie running back, especially in Dynasty Fantasy Football, give me Javonte Williams and the 107, the 108, especially in a super flex format, because that will be about the range where you're going to be starting to see either those top end quarterbacks go off the board, or maybe you get guys like Malik Willis going a little bit before that, and that's going to push down some talent that you like, the 107, 108, whether that's Breece Hall, Drake London. I mean, you go wherever you want, or if anything, you hold the picks, let them rise in value. Once we get closer to the rookie draft, then you go through, look to sell from there. Okay, so now let's go to our next question that's going to come out from Avery. This is Alvin Kamara, Terrace Marshall, and a future second for T. Higgins and Dallas Goedert. It's a Superflex tight end premium 8-team league. Okay, really quickly, let's just address the fact that if you're playing in a Superflex 8-team league, it's kind of similar to a 1 quarterback in a 12-team. I know that doesn't necessarily make that much sense, but think about it. You do some simple math, every team could roster 4 starting quarterbacks. So really, it being Superflex doesn't make a difference. Tight end premium, it obviously makes a difference in this deal in particular, because you're getting Dallas Goedert. The second round pick is actually going to be a little bit more valuable here, because keep in mind, this pick's going to be anywhere from pick 9 to 16. Okay, 9 to 16 in the Superflex tight end premium format is going to be moving up the scale compared to what you'd see in a 12-team second round pick. Terrace Marshall, I'll say really quickly, literally at this point is worth nothing, because in an 8-team league, the only thing, and I repeat, the only thing that matters is going to be having an elite ceiling, because you're always going to be able to go through and replace Terrace Marshall with someone like Cole Beasley for literally nothing, for free. In an 8-team league, you should even have receiver options on the waiver wire. And for Terrace Marshall to flame out in this fashion his rookie season, it is very reminiscent of what you had with N'Keal Harry, his own rookie season. But I would say my answer for this in an 8-team format is going to be a little bit different than it would be for a 12-teamer. If you made this trade in a 12-team league, previously we discussed in this video adjusting for your league format, whereas you had, say, 3 starting wide receiver spots and 3 flex spots, I'm looking at T. Higgins and saying he is a consistent contributor over the next 5 to 6 years in this format. Throw on Dallas Goedert at the same time, especially in a tight end premium format. Even if we have a top end tight end, we can slide him into one of those flex spots, and he is going to be that stable asset for years to come as well. And I would probably prefer the T. Higgins and Dallas Goedert side. However, because this is an 8-team league, I actually think we should be probably going in the direction of Kamara. Of course, it does come down to your roster construction just a little bit here, but I am always going to go for just the best asset overall in an 8-team league. So I would say if this was a regular 12-team format, give me T. Higgins, give me Dallas Goedert. Let's avoid the running back that is going into year 3 of his second contract. But with this being an 8-team league instead, I actually want to be moving down the wide receivers in our rankings just slightly and just giving the edge out to Alvin Kamara. If he gives us 2 top-end running back 1 seasons and then falls off the face of the planet, that's more valuable than what you're getting from T. Higgins in an 8-team format because the receiver position is going to be a lot more replaceable. Now let's go over to our next trade that's going to come out from Robert. It says 12-team Superflex PPR format. Traded the 107, the 204, the 301, Terrace Marshall in a late first, and we received CeeDee Lamb and Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, I will say really quickly, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jameis Winston, these type of quarterbacks that naturally we would assume they're not going to have a starting job next year. If you look at this draft class, there are a lot of quarterback prospects that are probably going to get drafted and not get handed over the keys to the ship right away. It's probably going to be a lot of guys that, I don't want to say are similar to Jordan Love, but more so they're going to get drafted and kind of just be waiting in the wings, maybe waiting in the wings for 10, 11, 12 weeks, whatever the hell you want to assume that time frame is. Of course, there are so many different moving variables with that. And at the time I'm recording this on January 8th, it's a little bit hard to say exactly when those rookie quarterbacks are going to take over. But that's a long-winded way of saying I think Jimmy Garoppolo will have a starting job at the beginning of this next season. Now, no, it's not going to be in San Francisco. The 49ers didn't go out there and pay 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance to then sit Trey Lance in year 2. It's going to be Lance's team, but Jimmy Garoppolo could easily possibly be starting somewhere like Denver if they can't work out a deal for either Wilson, Watson, or Rodgers. So Jimmy G, I think we do have a starting quarterback here. I'd assume that he is very similar to, say, the 301 and Terrace Marshall. So if we essentially take out the 301 Terrace Marshall and take out Jimmy Garoppolo, I think that's an even swap, and we can kind of clean this trade up a little bit. And here you essentially traded the 107, the 204, and a 2023 first. I know you're saying it's a late first. I honestly almost ignore it when y'all send me messages on Patreon and say late first, early first, middle first, because it's so hard to project just 3 months out. Like whenever we're in August, it's hard to know exactly what team's going to be a dominant contender. So whenever it's January, it's even harder to do so. So I'm going to ignore that you're saying it's a late first, unless it's just the most dominant team in the league and it's not even close. We all play in a Dynasty league or two where it's boring how good the top team is. If that's the scenario, then sure, it matters. If not, I'm going to treat it like it's a random first. I would say the value lies on the side of CeeDee Lamb. However, based on principle, this is not the time of year to be making this trade. We talked about this in a video recently. I'm actually going to be the guy going through and trying to acquire rookie picks at the moment and not sell them away, even if you think that right now this 2022 draft class doesn't look great, which I know that's a common opinion. I know that's a common stance that most people have at this point, but as we've discussed time and time again, everybody will be willing to trade for a rookie pick. Once we get to March, everybody will be willing to trade for a rookie pick. So if you have an owner that's bored and all of a sudden goes, Chris Godwin is on the block, you may go through and try to offer him, say, I'll give you CeeDee Lamb, give me Chris Godwin in a future first. And they may not be interested in CeeDee Lamb. They may not be interested in the single player that you have to offer. Of course, you have a couple other, but you get the point. Whereas, every team speaks in rookie picks. It's literally like going to the market and you either are going to barter and you have a bunch of different objects and a wagon behind you in your roster, or if you go into the offseason and instead you already have cashed out those objects in the wagon, you just have a wallet full of cash, like the 107, the 204, the 301, and a future first as well. That's that wallet full of cash that you're going to be able to go through the entire offseason, and you're going to be able to handpick exactly what you want when deals arise. So from a value standpoint, I am completely fine getting CeeDee Lamb and Jimmy Garoppolo here. But from a process standpoint, I may actually prefer to hold on to the rookie picks right now, wait till they increase in value as we go through this offseason, and then possibly try to pinpoint the exact time frame that we want to go through and purchase a distressed asset at a discount. Okay, so now let's go through. Let's talk one more deal. We got Sebastian coming out. It says 12-team, one quarterback league, 2 late 2022 first for Javonte Williams. Hell yes, give me Javonte Williams here. Now, if this was a super flex format and you were going to have those quarterbacks pushing down skill positional players like Chris Olave possibly to the end of the first, and then also you were going to get another player of that tier, then sure, maybe you can make the argument to take the 2 first, but in a one quarterback format, those first round picks are going to be worth significantly less than they would in super flex. So yeah, I love going and just getting the 3 down running back on their rookie deal in Javonte Williams. Even though that kind of goes against what we were just speaking on in the previous trade, there's a big difference between a 110 in a one quarterback format between the 110 in a super flex format. I mean, you could see yourself selecting a completely different tier of rookie. Now, I really hope that y'all enjoyed this video. Please go down to the comment section if you want more videos like this. I'm going to be getting some Q&A live Patreon live streams, probably on this channel. So even if you're not a part of the flock on Patreon, you can still watch it. You can still check it out. But let me know if that's something y'all want to see. And of course, thank y'all so much for being a part of the flock, checking out the video. You better be at the flock meetup, and you better have dropped that like in this video. And I hope to see you out tomorrow.